We've decided that Rebecca and her children need the space more than you do, so you'll need to find somewhere else to live by the end of the month." My mother delivered this devastating news while casually folding laundry in the kitchen where I had eaten breakfast every morning for 26 years, her tone suggesting she was discussing weekend dinner plans rather than permanently displacing her own daughter to accommodate my brother's expanding household. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The words hung in the air like smoke from a house fire, acrid and suffocating, as I stood frozen in the doorway of what had been my childhood home for over 2 decades. The familiar kitchen that had witnessed countless family meals, homework sessions, and late-night conversations suddenly felt foreign and hostile, transformed by a single sentence into a space where I was no longer welcome or valued. My name is Elena Rodriguez, and at 26 years old, I had never imagined that the family who raised me would view me as expendable furniture to be moved aside when more important priorities emerged. The house on Maple Street in suburban Denver had been my constant throughout every major transition in my life, from elementary school graduations to college acceptance letters, from career achievements to relationship disappointments. The pale yellow walls of my childhood bedroom contained memories that stretched back to my earliest awareness of myself as an individual with dreams, fears, and the unshakable belief that family represented unconditional love and permanent security. But standing in that kitchen on a Tuesday evening in March, watching my mother continue her domestic routine as if she had not just shattered the foundation of my understanding about my place in the family hierarchy, I realized that my assumptions about unconditional love had been naive and ultimately dangerous. The casual cruelty of her delivery method revealed a calculated indifference to my feelings that suggested this decision had been discussed, debated, and finalized without any consideration of my perspective or needs. "What do you mean I need to find somewhere else to live?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper as I struggled to process the magnitude of what she had just announced. The question seemed reasonable and necessary, but even as I spoke the words, I could hear the desperation creeping into my tone, the pleading quality that would later embarrass me when I replayed this conversation during sleepless nights in temporary accommodations. My mother, Patricia Rodriguez, looked up from the laundry basket with the expression of mild annoyance that she typically reserved for telemarketers or door-to-door salespeople who interrupted her carefully scheduled household routines. Her graying hair was pulled back in the practical ponytail that had become her signature look since my father's promotion to regional sales manager had elevated their social status within their circle of suburban professionals. The kitchen around her reflected the middle-class prosperity that my parents had achieved through decades of careful financial management and strategic career advancement, with granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, and decorative elements that spoke of comfortable success rather than extravagant wealth. "Elena, you're a grown woman with a good job and no dependents," she replied, resuming her folding with mechanical precision that suggested this conversation was an interruption rather than a pivotal moment in our relationship. "Rebecca has 3 children and a husband who needs space to work from home. This house has 4 bedrooms, and it makes sense for the family with the most people to have access to the most space. You can find a nice apartment somewhere, and you'll probably enjoy the independence." The logic was presented with the kind of reasonable tone that parents use when explaining why vegetables are mandatory or bedtime is non-negotiable. But the underlying assumption revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of what this displacement represented. My mother was treating housing as a mathematical problem to be solved through efficient resource allocation, ignoring the emotional significance of removing her daughter from her childhood home to accommodate her son's expanding household needs. Rebecca Martinez, my brother Daniel's wife of 7 years, had become the golden daughter-in-law whose needs and preferences consistently took precedence over the concerns of other family members. Her 3 children, ranging in age from 4 to 10, were undeniably charming and deserving of love and attention, but their presence in family discussions had gradually shifted the balance of power away from individual relationships toward collective focus on what was best for the nuclear family unit that Daniel and Rebecca had created. Daniel himself had been notably absent from the kitchen during this conversation, though his car was parked in the driveway and his presence in the house was evident from the sound of children playing in the living room. This absence was not accidental or coincidental. My brother, 2 years older than me and significantly more skilled at avoiding uncomfortable confrontations, had undoubtedly orchestrated this arrangement so that our mother would deliver the news, while he remained safely removed from the immediate emotional fallout that was certain to follow. The strategic nature of this absence revealed the careful planning that had preceded this moment. My displacement was not the result of sudden circumstances or emergency housing needs. It was the culmination of family discussions that had occurred. Without my participation, decisions that had been made about my future without my input, and agreements that had been reached about my value within the family structure without my knowledge or consent. Standing in that kitchen, absorbing the reality that my own parents viewed me as less important than their son's convenience, I felt something fundamental shift in my understanding of family loyalty and mutual obligation. The unconditional love that I had assumed formed the foundation of family relationships was apparently conditional upon circumstances, birth order, and the strategic value that individual family members provided to the collective unit. My father, Miguel Rodriguez, chose that moment to enter the kitchen, his timing so perfectly coordinated with my mother's announcement that their collaboration in this decision became unmistakably clear. His expression was carefully neutral, the diplomatic face that he had perfected during years of managing client relationships and office politics in his corporate sales position. The slight tension around his eyes suggested that he was prepared for resistance and had developed strategies for managing whatever objections I might raise to their housing rearrangement plans. "Elena, we know this is a big change," he said, his voice carrying the practiced smoothness that had made him successful in convincing strangers to purchase insurance policies and financial products they had not initially wanted. "But we think this is actually a great opportunity for you to establish your independence and start building equity in your own property instead of living at home. Most people your age have already made this transition, and you're financially stable enough to handle the responsibility." The reframing of my displacement as an opportunity for personal growth was psychologically sophisticated and emotionally manipulative, transforming my parents' prioritization of my brother's family into evidence of their confidence in my capabilities and their desire to promote my individual development. The suggestion that I was somehow behind schedule in achieving independence implied that my continued residence in the family home was abnormal and potentially unhealthy, despite the fact that my contributions to household expenses and maintenance had been substantial and appreciated until this moment. More significantly, the emphasis on my financial stability revealed one of the underlying assumptions that had made this decision seem reasonable to my parents. As a software engineer at a growing technology company in downtown Denver, I earned a salary that was considerably higher than what most people my age could expect, and my parents were aware that I had been diligent about saving money and avoiding the consumer debt that trapped many of my peers in cycles of financial insecurity. But my financial capability did not diminish the emotional impact of being displaced from my childhood home, nor did it justify the unilateral nature of a decision that would fundamentally alter my living situation and my relationship with my family. The fact that I could afford to live independently did not mean that I should be required to do so in order to accommodate my brother's expanding space requirements, particularly when the house that was being redistributed had been as much my home as anyone else's for the previous 2 decades. The children's laughter from the living room provided a soundtrack to this kitchen confrontation that emphasized the generational dynamics underlying my parents' decision. Rebecca's children represented the future of the Rodriguez family legacy, while I represented a transitional phase that could be concluded now that my brother had established his own household and begun producing the grandchildren who would carry the family name and traditions forward into the next generation. This realization cut deeper than the immediate housing crisis because it revealed how my parents conceptualized my role within the family structure. I was not viewed as a permanent member whose needs and preferences deserved equal consideration, but as a temporary resident whose occupancy of space and resources could be terminated when more important priorities emerged. The casual efficiency with which they had planned my displacement suggested that my emotional attachment to the house and my sense of belonging within the family unit had never been factors in their decision-making process. "When did you decide this?" I asked, though I already suspected that the answer would confirm my growing understanding of how thoroughly I had been excluded from discussions about my own future. The question was motivated by a desperate hope that this was a recent decision that could still be reconsidered if I presented compelling arguments or demonstrated appropriate emotional responses. My parents exchanged a glance that confirmed the collaborative nature of their planning and their preparation for this exact question. My mother's slight nod toward my father indicated that they had agreed he would handle the timeline discussion, probably because his corporate experience had taught him how to present decisions as inevitable conclusions rather than arbitrary choices that could be challenged or reversed. "We've been talking about this for a few months," my father admitted, though his tone suggested that the duration of their planning was evidence of thoughtful consideration rather than prolonged deception. "Rebecca and Daniel have been looking at houses, but the market is really challenging right now, and mortgage rates are higher than they'd like. When we calculated how much space everyone needs and looked at the financial implications of different arrangements, this solution made the most sense for everyone involved." The phrase "everyone involved" was particularly significant because it revealed who my parents considered to be stakeholders in this decision. The universe of people whose needs and preferences had been considered apparently included my parents, my brother, his wife, and their 3 children, but excluded me, entirely despite the fact that I was the person most directly affected by the housing rearrangement they had designed. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The financial calculations that my father referenced had apparently weighed the costs and benefits of various living arrangements for different family members, but these calculations had not included any consideration of the emotional costs to me or the relationship costs that would result from displacing me to accommodate my brother's family. The mathematical approach to family resource allocation treated housing as a commodity to be distributed efficiently, rather than recognizing the psychological and social dimensions of home and belonging that could not be captured in spreadsheet analyses. Standing in that kitchen, listening to my parents explain their reasoning with the detached professionalism they might use to describe a business decision or investment strategy, I understood that I was experiencing a defining moment that would fundamentally alter my relationship with my family and my understanding of my place in the world. The security and unconditional acceptance that I had assumed were permanent features of family relationships were being revealed as contingent benefits that could be withdrawn when circumstances changed or other priorities emerged. The shock was not just about losing my housing situation, though that practical concern was certainly significant and urgent. The deeper shock was about discovering that my parents viewed me as less important than my brother, that my needs were considered secondary to his convenience, and that my emotional attachment to our family home was seen as an obstacle to be overcome, rather than a legitimate concern to be addressed with sensitivity and respect. This moment of betrayal would become the foundation for everything that followed in my personal and professional development. The casual cruelty of my displacement would teach me lessons about self-reliance, strategic thinking, and the importance of building security that could not be threatened by other people's changing priorities or shifting loyalties. The pain of being treated as expendable by the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally would fuel a determination to succeed at levels that would eventually transform the power dynamics within my family and force them to recognize the value they had dismissed so carelessly. But standing in that kitchen on a Tuesday evening in March, absorbing the reality that I had 30 days to find alternative housing because my childhood bedroom was needed for my brother's home office, I was still the shocked and betrayed daughter. who had believed that family meant forever security and unconditional love. The transformation that would follow this moment of awakening was still months away, waiting to emerge from the determination and resilience that would be forged in the crucible of having to rebuild my life from a foundation that had been destroyed by the people I had trusted most completely. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, with my parents providing additional details about their expectations for my departure timeline, their suggestions for apartment hunting strategies, and their reassurances that this change would ultimately benefit everyone involved. But the essential damage had been done in those first few sentences when I learned that my place in the family hierarchy was contingent rather than permanent, and that my needs could be sacrificed for the convenience of others without consultation or consideration of my perspective. As I walked upstairs to my childhood bedroom that evening, knowing that I had less than 4 weeks to find alternative housing and prepare for a transition that I had never chosen or anticipated, I could not have imagined that this moment of rejection and displacement would eventually become the catalyst for achievements that would dwarf my parents' suburban prosperity and create opportunities for impact that would extend far beyond the comfortable limitations of their middle-class expectations. The girl who had been dismissed as expendable would become the woman who built an empire, and the family who had treated her as less important than her brother's convenience would eventually discover that their calculations about relative value had been catastrophically incorrect. But that transformation was still waiting in the future, beyond months of struggle, determination, and the gradual development of capabilities that would ultimately redefine what was possible for someone who refused to accept other people's limitations as permanent constraints on her potential. The shock of displacement would become the foundation of unprecedented achievement. But first, it would become the source of the deepest pain and the most profound determination that would drive every decision in the challenging months ahead. The Rodriguez family had cultivated an image of progressive values and gender equality that made the preference for my brother Daniel appear subtle and unintentional to casual observers. But the patterns of favoritism had been accumulating for decades like sediment in a riverbed, invisible until sudden erosion revealed the depth of accumulated bias that had shaped every major family decision since our childhood. Growing up in the planned community of Thornfield Heights, Denver, during the 1990s and early 2000s, meant being surrounded by families who publicly embraced modern ideals about raising children without gender limitations, while unconsciously perpetuating traditional expectations that channeled boys toward leadership and girls toward support roles. The contradiction between stated values and practiced behaviors created an environment where discrimination flourished under the cover of progressive rhetoric, making it nearly impossible to identify or challenge because it was disguised as natural. Differences in personality or preference rather than systematic bias in treatment and opportunity allocation. My parents, Patricia and Miguel Rodriguez, had met during their junior year at Colorado State University, where they were both studying business administration with concentrations that would prepare them for careers in corporate management and financial services. Their courtship and early marriage occurred during the cultural transition period, when women were entering professional careers in unprecedented numbers, while traditional family structures remained largely unchanged in terms of domestic responsibility distribution and child-rearing expectation patterns. Patricia had graduated with honors and secured a position with a regional accounting firm, where her analytical skills and attention to detail quickly earned recognition from senior partners who valued her ability to manage complex client portfolios and navigate regulatory compliance requirements that were becoming increasingly sophisticated during the economic expansion of the late 1980s. Her career trajectory suggested potential for advancement to partnership level within a decade, assuming she maintained the professional focus and time commitment that such advancement typically required. Miguel had chosen sales as his professional focus, recognizing early in his college experience that his natural charisma and communication abilities could be translated into substantial financial rewards in industries where relationship building and persuasion skills determined individual success levels. His entry-level position with a large insurance company provided commission-based compensation that created immediate financial incentives for performance, while offering advancement opportunities that could lead to regional management responsibilities and eventual ownership of independent agency operations. During their first 5 years of marriage, both of my parents had pursued their careers with equal intensity and comparable success, establishing themselves as a power couple within their social circle who embodied the modern dual-career partnership that was becoming the aspirational standard for educated professionals in suburban communities across America. Their combined income had enabled them to purchase the 4-bedroom colonial house on Maple Street that would become the setting for our family life and the eventual scene of my displacement 30 years later. The birth of Daniel in 1995 marked the beginning of subtle shifts in family dynamics that would gradually evolve into the systematic favoritism that shaped our childhood experiences and established patterns of expectation and resource allocation that continued into our adult relationships. The arrival of their first child had required adjustments in career priorities and domestic arrangements that revealed underlying assumptions about gender roles and family responsibilities that had been dormant during their pre-parental years. Patricia had negotiated a reduced schedule with her accounting firm that allowed her to maintain her professional relationships and client responsibilities while dedicating additional time to childcare and household management duties that Miguel's travel-intensive sales position made difficult for him to share equally. The arrangement was presented as a temporary accommodation that would be adjusted as Daniel grew older and required less intensive supervision. But the precedent it established would influence family decision-making patterns for decades to come. When I was born 2 years later, the family structure had solidified around assumptions about maternal responsibility and paternal career prioritization that made Patricia the primary parent for day-to-day childcare, while Miguel focused on generating the income that supported our comfortable suburban lifestyle. The division of labor was practical and efficient, but it also created different relationships between each parent and their children that would influence how our individual needs and achievements were perceived and valued throughout our developmental years. Daniel's position as the firstborn son in a family where the father was frequently absent due to business travel meant that he developed a special relationship with both parents that combined the attention typically given to oldest children with the cultural significance that many families unconsciously attach to male offspring. He was not explicitly told that he was more important than his younger sister, but the patterns of attention, investment, and expectation communicated this message through accumulated daily interactions that shaped his understanding of his place within the family hierarchy. My own experience as the younger daughter was characterized by different types of attention and different categories of expectation that reflected traditional assumptions about what girls needed to learn and what kinds of achievements deserved recognition and celebration. I was praised for helpfulness, cooperation, and academic performance, but these accomplishments were framed as personal virtues rather than indicators of potential for significant achievement or leadership roles that might require family investment and support. The distinction became more pronounced during our elementary and middle school years, when extracurricular activities and academic choices began to differentiate our individual interests and capabilities. Daniel's participation in competitive sports received enthusiastic support from both parents, who attended games regularly and celebrated his achievements with family gatherings and special recognition that reinforced the importance of his pursuits. His struggles with academic subjects were addressed through tutoring and additional support that was framed as necessary investment in his future success. My own academic excellence was acknowledged with approval and pride, but it was not accompanied by the same level of investment or strategic planning that characterized my parents' approach to Daniel's development. When I expressed interest in advanced mathematics and science courses, the response was positive but passive, lacking the active advocacy and resource commitment that had characterized their support for Daniel's athletic pursuits. The message, delivered through absence rather than explicit statement, was that my achievements were personally satisfying but not strategically important to the family's long-term success. High school intensified these patterns as college preparation began to dominate family discussions about our futures and the investments that would be required to position each of us for post-graduation success. Daniel's academic performance had improved sufficiently to make college admission viable, but his standardized test scores and grade point average suggested that he would need substantial application support and possibly remedial preparation to succeed at competitive institutions. My own academic record during this period was substantially stronger across all measured categories, with standardized test scores that placed me in the top 5% nationally and grades that reflected consistent excellence in challenging courses that included advanced placement mathematics, science, and computer programming. The objective evidence suggested that I was better prepared for competitive college admission and more likely to succeed in demanding academic environments than my brother. However, the family's college planning discussions focused primarily on identifying appropriate institutions for Daniel and developing strategies to present his application materials in ways that would maximize his admission chances despite his academic limitations. The assumption seemed to be that his college success was essential to the family's long-term prosperity, while my academic achievements were noted with pride but not treated as requiring strategic planning or significant financial investment. The differential treatment became explicit during our senior year when college application and financial planning discussions revealed the extent to which my parents had internalized traditional assumptions about gender roles and family responsibility. Daniel's college expenses were treated as necessary family investments that required careful budgeting and potentially some financial sacrifice to ensure that he could attend the best institution that would accept him and graduate without excessive debt that might limit his post-graduation career options. My own college expenses were framed as personal investments that I should be prepared to finance largely through scholarships, part-time employment, and student loans that reflected individual responsibility for educational costs. The difference in approach was not presented as gender discrimination, but as practical recognition that Daniel would eventually need to support a family, while I would likely marry someone who could share or assume primary financial responsibility for household expenses. These assumptions were never stated explicitly in family conversations, but they influenced every aspect of college preparation and financial planning in ways that created vastly different post-graduation trajectories for Daniel and me. He attended a mid-tier state university where he studied business administration with full family financial support and graduated with minimal debt, while I received partial scholarships to attend a more competitive institution where I studied computer science and software engineering while working part-time to cover living expenses that my family considered my personal responsibility. The pattern continued after graduation, when Daniel's job search received active family networking support, while my career development was treated as an individual achievement that reflected personal capability rather than family investment. Miguel's professional connections in the business community were mobilized to identify opportunities for Daniel, while my entry into the technology sector was accomplished through individual initiative and merit-based selection processes that received family recognition but not active assistance. Daniel's marriage to Rebecca Martinez 5 years after college graduation was celebrated as a significant family milestone that represented the successful completion of his transition to independent adulthood and the beginning of his role as the family patriarch for the next generation. The wedding expenses were shared between both families, but my parents' contribution was substantial and cheerfully provided as evidence of their pride in their son's achievement in securing an appropriate wife who would support his career ambitions and provide the grandchildren who would continue the Rodriguez family legacy. My own romantic relationships during this period received polite interest, but not the same level of investment or celebration, partly because my career focus had delayed marriage and family formation, and partly because my parents seemed to view my eventual marriage as less central to family success than Daniel's establishment of a household that would produce the next generation of Rodriguez descendants. The birth of Daniel and Rebecca's first child had marked another shift in family dynamics that further clarified the hierarchy of importance and attention allocation within our extended family structure. The grandparents' enthusiasm for their new role was immediate and intense, with frequent visits, substantial gift-giving, and active involvement in childcare that created strong bonds between the older and younger generations while reinforcing Daniel's position as the family member whose life decisions generated the most significant consequences for everyone else. My career advancement during this period had been substantial and professionally satisfying, with promotions and salary increases that reflected strong performance and growing expertise in software development and project management. But these achievements were acknowledged with pride rather than celebrated with the same enthusiasm that greeted milestones in Daniel's family life, creating a subtle but persistent message that professional success was less important than domestic achievement when evaluating individual contributions to family welfare. The gradual accumulation of these differential treatment patterns had created a family culture where Daniel's needs and preferences were automatically prioritized, while mine were considered secondary concerns that could be addressed after more important priorities had been satisfied. The housing decision that had displaced me from the family home was simply the most recent and dramatic expression of assumptions about relative importance that had been developing for decades through countless smaller decisions and resource allocation choices. Understanding this historical context made the shock of displacement more comprehensible, but not less painful. The casual efficiency with which my parents had planned my removal from the family home reflected their sincere belief that my needs were less important than Daniel's convenience, and that belief had been reinforced through years of family interactions that had established these priorities as natural and appropriate rather than discriminatory and harmful. The realization that my displacement was not an aberration, but the logical culmination of lifelong patterns of favoritism, forced me to reevaluate every assumption I had maintained about family loyalty, mutual obligation, and unconditional love. The security that I had believed was permanent had actually been contingent all along, dependent upon my continued acceptance of a subordinate role that could be redefined or eliminated when circumstances required accommodation of more important family members. This understanding would become the foundation for the transformation that followed, as I recognized that the family relationships I had treasured were built on fundamentally unequal terms that made my security dependent upon other people's continued goodwill rather than mutual respect and genuine consideration for my needs and preferences. The pain of this recognition would fuel the determination to build success that could not be threatened by other people's changing priorities or shifting loyalties, creating independence that would eventually transform the power dynamics within. My family enforced recognition of the value they had dismissed so carelessly for so many years. The first crack in my acceptance of established family dynamics appeared during my sophomore year at the University of Colorado Boulder, when a particularly challenging computer science project forced me to recognize that my approach to problem-solving differed fundamentally from the methodologies that my family had always celebrated and rewarded. The assignment required developing a comprehensive database management system for a fictional retail company, complete with inventory tracking, customer relationship management, and financial reporting capabilities that would demonstrate mastery of advanced programming concepts and business application design. While my classmates approached the project as a technical exercise focused on meeting minimum requirements and achieving acceptable grades, I found myself analyzing the underlying business processes with an intensity that revealed deeper questions about efficiency, scalability, and strategic value creation. The fictional retail scenario provided in the assignment description contained numerous operational inefficiencies that could be addressed through more sophisticated database architecture and user interface design, improvements that would transform the system from a basic academic exercise into a genuinely useful business tool. This recognition marked the beginning of my understanding that I possessed analytical capabilities that extended beyond technical proficiency into strategic business thinking, abilities that had been acknowledged but never actively cultivated by my family because they conflicted with traditional expectations about appropriate career paths for daughters and the types of achievements that deserved serious investment and development support. The database project consumed weeks of intensive work that involved not only programming and technical implementation, but also comprehensive research into retail industry best practices, customer behavior analysis, and financial management principles that would inform the system design. I interviewed local business owners to understand their operational challenges, studied successful retail companies to identify common patterns in data management and customer service, and developed innovative solutions that addressed problems my fictional client had not even recognized they faced. The final presentation of my project generated responses from faculty and fellow students that revealed how significantly my work had exceeded standard expectations for undergraduate coursework. The system I had developed incorporated features and functionality that demonstrated graduate-level understanding of business operations and software engineering principles, while the comprehensive documentation and user training materials I had created reflected professional standards typically associated with commercial software development rather than academic assignments. Professor Jennifer Matthews, who had been teaching database management courses for over 15 years, requested a private meeting to discuss the implications of my project and the career possibilities that such capabilities might enable. Her feedback during that conversation provided the first external validation I had received for thinking patterns and analytical approaches that my family had never recognized as particularly significant or valuable. Elena, what you have created here goes far beyond demonstrating technical competency, Professor Matthews explained, gesturing toward the printed documentation that accompanied my software demonstration. You have identified business problems that were not explicitly mentioned in the assignment, developed solutions that address root causes rather than symptoms, and created implementation strategies that consider long-term scalability and user adoption challenges. This level of systems thinking suggests you have genuine potential for entrepreneurial leadership in technology applications. The conversation continued for over an hour as Professor Matthews outlined career paths and educational opportunities that I had never considered viable options for someone from my background and family circumstances. She described emerging fields in business technology consulting, software product development, and strategic systems analysis that required exactly the combination of technical expertise and business insight that my project had demonstrated. More significantly, she explained how these career paths could lead to opportunities for independent business ownership and executive leadership that would provide both financial rewards and professional autonomy far beyond what traditional employment arrangements typically offered. This discussion marked the first time that an authority figure had recognized my analytical capabilities as potentially transformative rather than simply impressive, and the first time that anyone had suggested my thinking patterns might be suitable for leadership roles rather than supporting positions. The validation was professionally significant, but it also created emotional dissonance with family messages that had consistently framed my achievements as personally satisfying, but not strategically important to long-term success and financial security. The contrast between Professor Matthews's assessment of my potential and my family's casual dismissal of my accomplishments forced me to confront uncomfortable questions about the accuracy of the guidance and expectations that had shaped my self-perception and career planning decisions. If my capabilities were more significant than my family had recognized, then their advice about appropriate goals and realistic expectations had been based on incomplete or inaccurate understanding of what I might be able to achieve with proper development and strategic application. This realization initiated a period of intensive self-examination and independent research that would gradually transform my understanding of personal potential and career possibilities. I began studying successful entrepreneurs and business leaders who had emerged from backgrounds similar to mine, paying particular attention to women who had overcome family skepticism and gender-based limitations to build significant companies and achieve recognition for innovations that had created substantial value in their respective industries. The biographical accounts and case studies I discovered revealed patterns that were both encouraging and sobering. Many successful business leaders had experienced early family resistance to their ambitions, particularly women whose entrepreneurial interests conflicted with traditional expectations about appropriate career choices and family responsibilities. However, those who had ultimately succeeded had typically developed strong support networks outside their families and had learned to validate their decisions based on market feedback and objective performance metrics rather than family approval and encouragement. The implications of these discoveries were profound for someone who had always sought family validation as confirmation of personal worth and decision-making effectiveness. The successful entrepreneurs I studied had typically reached a point where they stopped seeking permission from family members to pursue opportunities that offered significant potential for growth and achievement, choosing instead to build relationships with mentors, colleagues, and business partners who could provide relevant expertise and encouragement for ambitious goals. This shift in perspective began influencing my approach to academic and extracurricular activities during my remaining university years. Instead of automatically sharing achievements and opportunities with family members for their approval and advice, I started developing independent criteria for evaluating possibilities and making decisions based on strategic value rather than family acceptance. The process was initially uncomfortable because it challenged established patterns of relationship and communication that had defined my interactions with parents and brother for my entire life. The changes became apparent during my junior year, when I accepted a competitive internship with a technology startup company in downtown Denver that offered substantial learning opportunities but required a demanding schedule that would limit my availability for family gatherings and traditional holiday celebrations. My parents expressed concern about the time commitment and questioned whether the internship would provide sufficient financial compensation to justify the sacrifice of family involvement and social relationships that had always been prioritized in our household. "Elena, you are becoming too focused on work and not enough on building relationships," my mother observed during a Sunday dinner conversation that had become increasingly rare due to my internship schedule. "Career success is important, but you also need to think about finding someone to marry and starting a family. This internship is taking up time that you could be spending on social activities and meeting potential partners." The advice reflected traditional assumptions about life priorities that had influenced family guidance throughout my childhood and adolescence, but it also revealed how fundamentally my parents misunderstood the nature of the opportunities I was pursuing and the career trajectory that those opportunities might enable. The technology industry operated according to different timelines and success metrics than the corporate environments my parents understood, and the networking and skill development that occurred during intensive internship experiences could create career possibilities that traditional social activities and relationship-building approaches could never provide. My response to these concerns marked a significant departure from previous patterns of family interaction and conflict resolution. Instead of accepting their guidance as automatically valid and adjusting my decisions to maintain family harmony, I began explaining my reasoning and defending my choices based on objective analysis of career prospects and market opportunities rather than family preferences and social expectations. The technology industry is extremely competitive, and the companies that hire new graduates look for candidates who have demonstrated exceptional performance in challenging internship positions, I explained, using data from industry reports and career placement statistics to support my position. The relationships I am building with senior engineers and product managers are creating opportunities for full-time employment and career advancement that would not be available through traditional social networking or family connections. The short-term sacrifice of social time is an investment in long-term career prospects that will determine my financial security and professional satisfaction for decades. The conversation revealed how thoroughly my analytical approach to decision-making had evolved beyond the framework of assumptions and priorities that guided family thinking. While my parents evaluated opportunities based on immediate social and relationship implications, I had learned to consider long-term strategic value and competitive positioning within industries that offered substantial rewards for exceptional performance and innovative thinking. This difference in analytical frameworks created increasing tension in family relationships as my career focus intensified, and my achievements began generating recognition from sources outside the family network. The internship supervisor, Dr. Rachel Chen, became an informal mentor who provided guidance on career development and graduate school opportunities that could accelerate my transition into leadership positions within the technology sector. Dr. Chen had built a successful consulting practice after earning her doctorate in computer science and spending several years in senior technical positions with major software companies. Her own career trajectory demonstrated how analytical capabilities and technical expertise could be transformed into entrepreneurial opportunities that provided both financial independence and professional fulfillment, outcomes that had never seemed possible based on family expectations and traditional career guidance. Elena, you have demonstrated the kind of systems thinking and technical leadership that successful technology entrepreneurs need to identify market opportunities and develop innovative solutions, Dr. Chen explained during one of our regular mentoring sessions. The internship work you have completed shows that you can analyze complex business problems, design elegant technical solutions, and communicate effectively with both technical and business stakeholders. These capabilities are exactly what investors and business partners look for when evaluating potential founders for technology startups. The encouragement was professionally valuable, but it also highlighted the growing gap between external recognition of my potential and family understanding of what I might be capable of achieving. While mentors and supervisors were suggesting possibilities for entrepreneurial leadership and significant business success, my family continued to frame my achievements as personally impressive, but not strategically important to long-term security and satisfaction. The disconnect became particularly apparent during family gatherings, where Daniel's progress in his entry-level business position received enthusiastic attention and celebration, while my internship achievements and graduate school planning were acknowledged with polite interest, but not treated as deserving of detailed discussion or strategic family input. The pattern reinforced my growing understanding that family validation would never be available for the career path I was developing, and that continued pursuit of ambitious goals would require independence from family approval and encouragement. This realization was emotionally challenging because it meant accepting that my relationship with my family would necessarily become more distant and less central to my decision-making processes as my career advanced and my capabilities were recognized by external sources. The unconditional family support that I had always assumed would be available for significant life transitions was apparently conditional upon my pursuing opportunities that aligned with family expectations and traditional definitions of appropriate success. The recognition that I would need to build success without family support was initially discouraging, but it also became a source of motivation and determination that would prove essential for the challenges ahead. If my family could not recognize or encourage my potential, then I would need to develop the internal confidence and external validation necessary to pursue extraordinary achievements without their approval or assistance. The period of awakening that began with the database management project and continued through my mentoring relationship with Dr. Chen established the foundation for thinking patterns and analytical approaches that would eventually enable me to recognize opportunities that others missed and develop solutions that created substantial value in competitive markets. The family skepticism that had initially seemed like an obstacle would ultimately become a source of strength by forcing me to develop independence and self-reliance that would prove essential for entrepreneurial success. The analytical rebellion that began during my university years would continue developing through my early career experiences, gradually transforming from intellectual curiosity into strategic business thinking that would eventually create opportunities for achievement that would dwarf the comfortable suburban success that my family had always considered the apex of reasonable ambition. The daughter who had been dismissed as too focused on technical details would eventually demonstrate that those details were the foundation for understanding market opportunities that could generate extraordinary returns for those who possessed the analytical capabilities to recognize and develop them effectively. The transition from university theoretical learning to professional application of analytical capabilities required systematic development of skills and relationships that my family network could not provide, forcing me to construct an entirely independent framework for career advancement and personal growth that would prove essential for the extraordinary achievements that lay ahead. This process of deliberate capability building began during my final semester at the University of Colorado Boulder, when I recognized that traditional employment paths would never fully utilize my potential or provide the financial independence necessary to protect myself from the kind of family manipulation that had shaped my childhood and continued to influence my brother's adult decisions. The realization that conventional career trajectories were insufficient for my goals emerged through careful analysis of salary progression data and advancement timelines in the technology sector, combined with frank conversations with industry professionals who had followed traditional corporate paths for 15 to 20 years. While these career routes offered stability and gradual financial improvement, they also required acceptance of organizational hierarchies and decision-making processes that could limit innovation and constrain the implementation of breakthrough solutions that my analytical mind consistently identified in business operations. More significantly, traditional employment arrangements would never provide the level of financial independence necessary to ensure protection from family pressure and manipulation tactics that had proven effective throughout my childhood and adolescence. The comfortable suburban lifestyle that satisfied my parents' aspirations required annual earnings that were achievable through conventional corporate advancement, but genuine independence from family influence required wealth accumulation that exceeded the boundaries of salary-based compensation structures. This understanding led me to begin researching entrepreneurial pathways and independent business development strategies that could leverage my technical expertise and analytical capabilities to create substantially greater financial returns than traditional employment arrangements could ever provide. The research revealed that successful technology entrepreneurs typically combined deep technical knowledge with strategic business thinking and systematic skill development in areas that universities rarely addressed comprehensively, including sales methodology, financial analysis, market research, and leadership psychology. The gap between university education and entrepreneurial requirements became the focus of my systematic self-development program during the final months of my undergraduate studies and continuing into my early career years. I approached this supplemental education with the same analytical rigor that had distinguished my academic performance, creating detailed learning plans and progress measurement systems that ensured consistent advancement toward capabilities that would prove essential for independent business success. The first component of this development program involved mastering sales and persuasion principles that would enable me to communicate technical solutions effectively to business decision-makers who lacked engineering backgrounds but controlled budget authority for technology investments. This requirement represented a significant departure from the technical focus that had dominated my university education, but I recognized that even the most brilliant innovations would remain unrealized without the ability to convince potential customers and investors of their value and market potential. I enrolled in evening courses through the Denver Chamber of Commerce that covered consultative selling methodologies, presentation design and delivery, and customer relationship management principles that successful technology consultants used to build thriving, independent practices. The coursework was challenging, not because the concepts were intellectually difficult, but because it required developing interpersonal skills and communication approaches that were fundamentally different from the logical, fact-based analytical methods that came naturally to my engineering-trained mind. The sales training revealed that successful business communication required understanding customer psychology, industry dynamics, and decision-making processes that operated according to different principles than the technical problem-solving frameworks I had mastered during my academic years. Customers made purchasing decisions based on combinations of rational analysis and emotional factors that included risk perception, competitive positioning concerns, and personal career advancement considerations that might be completely unrelated to the technical merits of proposed solutions. Learning to navigate these complex decision-making environments required developing skills in stakeholder analysis, presentation customization, and strategic communication that could address both logical requirements and emotional concerns simultaneously. The process was initially frustrating, because it required suppressing my natural tendency to focus on technical elegance and optimal efficiency in favor of solutions that satisfied multiple stakeholder priorities and organizational constraints. That might seem irrational from a purely technical perspective. However, the sales training also revealed opportunities for creating substantially greater value than traditional technical roles typically provided. Independent consultants who could bridge the gap between technical innovation and business application commanded premium pricing and enjoyed greater flexibility in project selection and client relationship management than employees in corporate environments. The financial rewards for successful independent practice could exceed traditional salary structures by factors of 3 to 5, while providing the autonomy and creative freedom that would enable implementation of breakthrough solutions without organizational bureaucracy and committee decision-making constraints. The second component of my systematic development program focused on financial analysis and business valuation methodologies that would enable me to evaluate investment opportunities and understand the metrics that sophisticated investors used to assess potential returns from technology ventures. This knowledge would prove essential, both for making sound decisions about my own business investments and for presenting opportunities to potential financial partners in terms that would demonstrate thorough understanding of risk assessment and return projections. I pursued this education through a combination of formal coursework at the University of Denver Business School, where I enrolled in evening MBA-level finance courses as a non-degree student, and independent study of investment analysis texts and case studies that detailed successful technology company valuations and acquisition transactions. The coursework covered discounted cash flow analysis, comparable company valuation methods, and venture capital investment criteria that provided frameworks for understanding how business ideas could be transformed into valuable enterprises that attracted sophisticated financial backing. The financial analysis training revealed that successful technology entrepreneurs needed to think beyond technical innovation to consider market sizing, competitive positioning, scalability potential, and exit strategy possibilities that would determine whether innovative solutions could be transformed into significant business enterprises. Many technically excellent products failed to achieve commercial success because their creators had not adequately considered these business development factors, while less technically sophisticated solutions achieved remarkable financial returns because they addressed large market opportunities with effective business models and strategic positioning. This insight reinforced my understanding that extraordinary success required combining technical expertise with comprehensive business thinking and systematic approach to market opportunity identification and development. The analytical capabilities that my family had never fully recognized or valued were actually the foundation for understanding complex business systems and identifying optimization opportunities that could create substantial value when properly developed and strategically implemented. The third component of my development program involved systematic networking and relationship building within the Denver technology community, with particular focus on connecting with successful entrepreneurs, experienced investors, and potential mentors who could provide guidance and opportunities that would accelerate my transition from employee to business owner. This networking requirement was perhaps the most challenging aspect of my development program, because it required overcoming natural introversion and preference for independent work that had characterized my academic and early professional years. I began attending monthly meetings of the Colorado Technology Association, weekly networking breakfasts organized by the Denver Entrepreneurs Organization, and quarterly conferences focused on emerging technology trends and investment opportunities. These events provided exposure to business leaders and industry experts who had achieved the kind of success that I was determined to build, while also offering opportunities to observe successful networking strategies and relationship management, approaches that could be adapted to my own professional development needs. The networking activities revealed that successful business relationships in the technology sector were built through demonstration of competence and value creation rather than through social charm or personal charisma, characteristics that aligned well with my analytical strengths and technical expertise. Entrepreneurs and investors were most interested in connecting with individuals who could identify genuine market opportunities, develop innovative solutions to significant business problems, and execute implementation strategies that delivered measurable results within reasonable timeframes. This understanding enabled me to approach networking activities with confidence and strategic focus, positioning myself as someone who could contribute technical expertise and analytical insights that would be valuable to established business leaders while learning from their experience in market development, customer acquisition, and business scaling methodologies. The relationships that developed through these networking efforts would prove essential for the opportunities that emerged during my early career years and the support that enabled my eventual transition to independent business ownership. One particularly valuable relationship developed with Dr. Amanda Foster, a successful technology entrepreneur who had built and sold 2 software companies over a 15-year career before becoming an angel investor and mentor to emerging entrepreneurs in the Denver market. Dr. Foster had achieved exactly the kind of financial independence and professional recognition that I was determined to build, and her willingness to share insights about business development and strategic decision-making provided invaluable guidance during my capability-building years. Dr. Foster introduced me to other successful entrepreneurs and potential business partners who expanded my understanding of market opportunities and business development strategies that could leverage my technical skills for maximum financial return. These relationships provided access to industry knowledge and strategic thinking frameworks that were not available through formal education or traditional employment experiences, accelerating my development of business expertise that would prove essential for independent success. The fourth component of my systematic development program involved gaining practical experience in business operations and customer relationship management through carefully selected employment opportunities that would provide learning experiences while building the financial resources necessary for eventual independent business launch. Rather than pursuing traditional corporate positions that offered standard career advancement paths, I sought roles with smaller companies and consulting organizations that would provide exposure to diverse business challenges and direct interaction with senior decision-makers who could serve as informal mentors and professional references. My first position after graduation was with a mid-sized technology consulting firm that specialized in database optimization and business intelligence solutions for regional companies across various industries. The role provided opportunities to work directly with client executives and business owners while developing expertise in project management, solution design, and implementation methodologies that would translate directly to independent consulting capabilities. The consulting experience revealed that many businesses were paying substantial fees for technical services that I could provide more efficiently and effectively than larger consulting organizations, while also identifying recurring problems and market opportunities that could be addressed through standardized solutions rather than custom consulting engagements. These insights would prove crucial for the business opportunities that I would eventually develop and implement. The position also provided exposure to senior consultants and business partners who had built successful independent practices, offering real-world examples of the transition process from employee to business owner, and the strategies that enabled sustainable business growth in competitive consulting markets. Their willingness to share experiences and advice provided practical guidance that complemented the theoretical knowledge I had gained through formal education and independent study. During my 2 years with the consulting firm, I systematically documented business processes, client challenges, and solution methodologies that would serve as the foundation for my own independent practice. I also built relationships with clients and industry contacts who would become potential customers and referral sources when I eventually launched my own business, while developing the technical expertise and professional reputation that would support premium pricing and selective client engagement strategies. The systematic capability building program that occupied my early career years required significant personal sacrifice and disciplined focus that distinguished my approach from the more conventional career development paths that most of my university peers had chosen. While former classmates were enjoying social activities and lifestyle improvements that traditional employment enabled, I was investing available time and financial resources in education, networking, and skill development that would pay substantial dividends in future years but provided limited immediate gratification. This approach reflected my understanding that extraordinary success required extraordinary preparation, and that the comfortable suburban lifestyle that satisfied my family's aspirations would never provide the independence and security that I was determined to achieve. The family dynamics that had culminated in my displacement from the childhood home had demonstrated conclusively that financial dependence on others created vulnerability to manipulation and control that could be devastating. When priorities shifted or circumstances changed, the years of systematic preparation were building toward opportunities that would eventually transform my technical expertise and analytical capabilities into business success that would dwarf my family's suburban prosperity and create the financial independence necessary to ensure that I would never again be vulnerable to other people's changing priorities or shifting loyalties. The foundation was being carefully constructed for achievements that would ultimately validate every assumption my mentors had made about my potential and refute every limitation that my family had accepted as permanent constraints on what someone from our background could reasonably expect to accomplish. The transition from theoretical preparation to practical application of advanced business capabilities occurred within organizational environments that were fundamentally unprepared for the level of analytical thinking and strategic innovation that my systematic development program had produced. The consulting firm where I had accepted my first professional position operated according to established methodologies and client relationship patterns that had proven profitable for over a decade, but these approaches had become increasingly inadequate for addressing the complex technological challenges that their corporate clients were facing in rapidly evolving competitive markets. My role as a senior database analyst within the firm's business intelligence division placed me at the intersection between technical implementation and strategic business consulting, a position that provided unprecedented visibility into the operational inefficiencies and missed opportunities that characterized most client engagements. While my colleagues approached projects as technical problems requiring standardized solutions, I found myself analyzing underlying business processes and identifying systemic improvements that could transform client operations far beyond the scope of their original consulting requests. The first significant conflict emerged during a 6-month engagement with Meridian Financial Services, a regional investment management company that had retained our firm to optimize their client portfolio, tracking systems, and improve reporting capabilities for regulatory compliance requirements. The project scope, as defined by senior partners at our consulting firm, focused narrowly on database performance optimization and report generation efficiency, with deliverables that would satisfy immediate technical requirements without addressing broader operational challenges that were limiting the client's growth potential and competitive positioning. However, my preliminary analysis of Meridian's existing systems revealed fundamental architectural problems that extended far beyond database performance issues into strategic areas of customer relationship management, risk assessment methodology, and market opportunity identification that represented millions of dollars in unrealized value creation potential. The client's current technology infrastructure was not simply inefficient, it was actively preventing them from implementing advanced investment strategies and client service approaches that their sophisticated customer base was beginning to demand from competitors. I documented these findings in a comprehensive analysis that outlined both immediate technical improvements and longer-term strategic enhancements that could transform Meridian from a regional player into a significant competitor within the national investment management market. The recommendations included innovative approaches to client data integration, predictive analytics implementation, and automated portfolio optimization that would enable service capabilities typically available only from much larger firms with substantially greater technology budgets. When I presented these findings to James Morrison, the senior partner overseeing the Meridian engagement, His response revealed the conservative mindset and limited vision that had begun to constrain our firm's growth potential in increasingly competitive consulting markets. Rather than recognizing the strategic value of my expanded analysis, Morrison viewed my comprehensive recommendations as scope creep that could complicate client relationships and project management timelines. Elena, you have clearly put significant effort into this analysis, but we need to stay focused on the specific deliverables that the client has requested and paid for, Morrison explained during a tense meeting in his corner office, surrounded by awards and recognition certificates that reflected his 20-year career in traditional consulting approaches. Meridian engaged us to solve their database performance problems, not to redesign their entire business strategy. If we start proposing solutions that go beyond their original request, we risk creating confusion about project scope and potentially damaging our relationship with a valuable long-term client. The response demonstrated Morrison's fundamental misunderstanding of how sophisticated clients actually made purchasing decisions and evaluated consulting relationships in competitive markets. Meridian's executives were not simply seeking technical solutions to immediate problems. They were evaluating whether our firm possessed the strategic thinking capabilities and innovative expertise that could support their long-term growth objectives and competitive positioning requirements. My comprehensive analysis had revealed exactly the kind of advanced thinking and solution development that distinguished premium consulting organizations from routine service providers, positioning our firm as a strategic partner rather than a tactical vendor. However, Morrison's risk-averse approach and limited vision prevented him from recognizing how my recommendations could transform the client relationship and establish our firm as the preferred advisor for Meridian's future technology investments and business development initiatives. The conflict escalated when I requested permission to present my expanded recommendations directly to Meridian's executive team, believing that they deserved the opportunity to evaluate the full scope of improvement possibilities rather than receiving only the limited technical solutions that Morrison considered appropriate. My request challenged established hierarchy within our firm and implied criticism of senior partner decision-making that Morrison interpreted as insubordination rather than professional initiative. Absolutely not, Morrison declared with finality. That reflected his authority within the firm's organizational structure. You are not authorized to make presentations to clients without senior partner approval, and I am not going to approve a presentation that exceeds our agreed project scope. Your job is to implement the database optimizations that we have contracted to deliver, not to reinvent the client's business strategy. I suggest you focus your analytical capabilities on the technical challenges that we are being paid to solve. The dismissal was professionally devastating because it prevented me from demonstrating the full value of my capabilities to clients who could recognize and reward innovative thinking, while also revealing that my current organizational environment would never provide opportunities for the kind of strategic impact that my systematic preparation had been designed to enable. Morrison's conservative approach was not simply limiting my individual advancement. It was constraining our firm's competitive positioning and preventing valuable client relationships from reaching their full potential. Despite Morrison's restrictions, I continued developing comprehensive solutions for Meridian's operational challenges, working during evenings and weekends to create detailed implementation plans and financial projections that demonstrated the substantial return on investment that strategic technology upgrades could provide. The analysis revealed that my recommended improvements could increase Meridian's client capacity by 40% while reducing operational costs by 25%, generating annual savings that would exceed the implementation investment within 18 months. The opportunity to present these findings emerged unexpectedly during the final project review meeting, when Meridian's Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Sarah Chen, expressed frustration with the limited scope of improvements that our firm's standard approach had delivered. Dr. Chen had been hoping for transformational solutions that could support aggressive growth objectives, but the database optimizations we had implemented provided only incremental performance improvements that failed to address fundamental competitive challenges. I appreciate the technical work that your team has completed, but I was hoping for more strategic thinking about how technology could support our expansion plans, Dr. Chen explained to Morrison during the review session. Our board of directors is pushing for innovative approaches that could differentiate us from competitors and enable rapid market share growth. The database improvements are helpful, but they do not address the broader operational limitations that are constraining our ability to serve sophisticated clients and compete with national firms. Morrison's response was predictably conservative, emphasizing the importance of operational stability over strategic innovation and suggesting that additional consulting engagements could address expanded requirements in future project phases. His approach reflected traditional consulting methodology that maximized billable hours through extended client relationships, while avoiding the risks associated with transformational recommendations that could produce dramatic results or spectacular failures. However, I recognize Dr. Chen's comments as an invitation to present the strategic analysis that Morrison had refused to authorize, and I made the decision to risk my position within the consulting firm by speaking directly to the clients' expressed needs and demonstrating the full scope of value that comprehensive technology strategy could provide for their competitive positioning and growth objectives. Dr. Chen, I believe I can address the strategic technology questions that you have raised, I said, interrupting Morrison's standard presentation with confidence that had been developed through months of preparation and analysis. I have been developing recommendations that go beyond database optimization to address the fundamental operational challenges that are limiting your firm's growth potential and competitive capabilities. The silence that followed was charged with tension as Morrison realized that I was directly challenging his authority and project management decisions in front of the client. His expression conveyed both anger and professional concern about the precedent that such behavior could establish within our firm's hierarchical structure and client relationship protocols. But Dr. Chen's immediate interest in my offer validated the strategic thinking that I had been developing and confirmed that sophisticated clients were seeking exactly the kind of comprehensive analysis that traditional consulting approaches consistently failed to provide. Her request to hear my recommendations created an opportunity to demonstrate capabilities that had been systematically suppressed by conservative organizational culture and risk-averse senior leadership. Over the next 45 minutes, I presented the comprehensive technology strategy that I had been developing throughout the engagement, outlining innovative approaches to client data integration, automated portfolio optimization, and predictive analytics implementation that could transform Meridian's competitive positioning within the investment management industry. The recommendations were supported by detailed financial projections, implementation timelines, and risk mitigation strategies that demonstrated thorough understanding of both technical requirements and business development implications. Dr. Chen's response exceeded my most optimistic expectations and validated every assumption that my mentors had made about my potential for strategic impact within sophisticated business environments. She immediately recognized the transformational value of my recommendations and requested detailed proposals for implementing the advanced capabilities that could support her firm's aggressive growth objectives and competitive differentiation strategies. This is exactly the kind of strategic thinking that we have been seeking from our consulting partners, Dr. Chen explained with enthusiasm that contrasted sharply with Morrison's increasingly uncomfortable demeanor. Your analysis addresses fundamental business challenges that we had not fully recognized, and your proposed solutions could enable capabilities that would position us as a legitimate competitor to national firms. We would like to engage your firm for a comprehensive implementation project based on these recommendations. The client's enthusiastic response to my strategic analysis created an immediate crisis within our consulting firm's established hierarchy and decision-making processes. Morrison could not refuse a significant new engagement that would generate substantial revenue and strengthen the firm's relationship with an important client. But accepting the project would require acknowledging that his conservative approach had been inadequate, and that my unauthorized strategic analysis had created value that his traditional methodology had failed to recognize. The internal conflict that followed revealed the fundamental limitations of organizational environments that prioritized hierarchy, preservation over innovation, recognition, and performance optimization. While Morrison was forced to accept the expanded engagement that my strategic thinking had generated, he also implemented informal restrictions and oversight procedures designed to limit my direct client interaction and ensure that future strategic recommendations would be filtered through established senior partner approval processes. These restrictions represented a systematic attempt to suppress the analytical capabilities and innovative thinking that had created substantial value for both the client and our consulting firm, while preserving organizational hierarchy and traditional authority structures that had become counterproductive in increasingly competitive markets. The experience demonstrated that many established business organizations were fundamentally incapable of recognizing and utilizing exceptional talent that challenged conventional approaches and exceeded standard performance expectations. The Meridian engagement marked the beginning of a pattern that would repeat throughout my remaining time with the consulting firm, as my comprehensive analytical approach consistently identified opportunities for transformational value creation that senior partners considered beyond appropriate project scope or organizational risk tolerance. Clients responded enthusiastically to strategic recommendations that addressed fundamental business challenges, but firm leadership remained committed to conservative methodologies that maximized predictable revenue streams while minimizing innovation risks. The conflict between my capabilities and organizational limitations created increasing frustration that was compounded by recognition that similar constraints existed throughout the traditional consulting industry and most corporate environments, where analytical excellence was subordinated to hierarchy preservation and risk avoidance. The systematic preparation that I had undertaken to develop entrepreneurial capabilities was proving essential not only for eventual independent business success, but also for surviving and thriving within organizational cultures that were unprepared for the level of strategic thinking and innovative problem-solving that comprehensive business education had produced. The resistance that I encountered from Morrison and other senior partners at the consulting firm was ultimately more valuable than their support would have been, because it clarified the necessity of independent business development and confirmed that extraordinary achievements would require building organizational environments that could recognize and reward exceptional performance rather than suppressing it to preserve established authority structures and comfortable operational routines. The crucible of professional resistance was forging the determination and strategic thinking that would prove essential for the entrepreneurial success that lay ahead, while also providing practical experience in managing organizational politics and client relationship development that would enable rapid business growth when I finally made the transition to independent practice. The systematic analysis of client engagements across multiple industries during my tenure with the consulting firm revealed consistent patterns of technological inefficiency and strategic missed opportunities that extended far beyond individual organizational problems into comprehensive market failures that were constraining entire industry sectors from achieving optimal performance and competitive differentiation. These observations gradually coalesced into a comprehensive vision for how advanced analytical capabilities and innovative technology solutions could transform traditional business operations across multiple market segments simultaneously. The recognition that industry-wide transformation opportunities existed began with detailed documentation of recurring problems that appeared in virtually every client engagement, regardless of company size, market sector, or organizational maturity level. Manufacturing companies struggled with supply chain optimization challenges that were fundamentally identical to inventory management problems faced by retail organizations. Financial services firms encountered customer relationship management difficulties that mirrored client communication issues experienced by professional service providers. Healthcare organizations battled data integration challenges that were structurally similar to information management problems confronting educational institutions. The consistency of these patterns suggested that underlying technological and analytical solutions could be developed once and then adapted for implementation across multiple industries, creating economies of scale and market opportunities that were vastly larger than the individual client projects that traditional consulting firms addressed through customized approaches. Rather than developing unique solutions for each client engagement, innovative technology companies could create standardized platforms that addressed fundamental business process challenges while providing customization capabilities that satisfied industry-specific requirements and organizational preferences. This insight represented a fundamental shift in thinking about technology consulting and business solution development that departed dramatically from the project-based, customized service model that had dominated the consulting industry for decades. Traditional consulting approaches generated revenue through labor-intensive engagements that required substantial professional time investment for each client implementation, creating inherent limitations on scalability and profitability that prevented consulting firms from achieving the rapid growth and market valuation that characterized successful technology companies. However, platform-based technology solutions could be developed once and then deployed across hundreds or thousands of client organizations with minimal incremental implementation costs, creating business models that combine the high-value problem-solving capabilities of consulting services with the scalability and recurring revenue characteristics of software-as-a-service companies. This hybrid approach represented unprecedented opportunities for entrepreneurs who possessed both deep analytical capabilities and comprehensive understanding of business operations across multiple industry sectors. The market opportunity analysis that emerged from this recognition revealed that existing technology companies had failed to address these cross-industry challenges because most software development organizations lacked sufficient business consulting experience to understand operational requirements, while traditional consulting firms lacked the technical expertise and scalability vision necessary to develop platform solutions. The gap between these two types of organizations created enormous opportunities for entrepreneurs who could bridge technical innovation with strategic business consulting through comprehensive solution development. My systematic documentation of client challenges and solution requirements during consulting engagements provided detailed insights into market needs and implementation requirements that would enable rapid development of platform technologies addressing the most common and valuable business process optimization opportunities. The data revealed that approximately 70% of client consulting engagements addressed variations of 5 fundamental business challenges: data integration and analysis, workflow optimization and automation, customer relationship management, and communication, financial planning and performance measurement, and regulatory compliance and risk management. Each of these challenge categories represented market opportunities worth hundreds of millions of dollars annually, while comprehensive platform solutions that addressed all 5 areas simultaneously could capture market share across multiple industry sectors and create competitive advantages that would be extremely difficult for established players to replicate. The business model implications were extraordinary, suggesting that successful platform development could generate revenue streams that exceeded traditional consulting firm profitability by factors of 10 to 20, while serving vastly larger customer bases through automated solution delivery. The technical architecture required for comprehensive platform development demanded capabilities that extended beyond conventional software engineering into advanced areas of artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive analytics, and automated decision-making that were just beginning to emerge as practical business applications. The timing was ideal for entrepreneurs who possessed both analytical expertise and business process understanding, as the underlying technologies were becoming accessible while market awareness of their potential remained limited among established competitors. The competitive landscape analysis revealed that existing technology companies were focusing on narrow technical solutions that addressed individual aspects of business process challenges, while comprehensive platforms that integrated multiple capabilities remained undeveloped despite clear market demand and substantial profit potential. Companies like Salesforce had demonstrated the viability of cloud-based business platforms, but their solutions addressed primarily customer relationship management requirements without extending into the broader operational optimization opportunities that my client analysis had identified. Similarly, enterprise resource planning companies like SAP and Oracle provided comprehensive business management capabilities, but their solutions required extensive customization and professional services support that created implementation barriers for small and medium-sized businesses that represented the largest market segments. The opportunity existed for platform solutions that combined comprehensive functionality with user-friendly implementation and affordable pricing models that could capture market share across all business size categories. The financial projections that emerged from comprehensive market analysis exceeded my initial expectations and validated the entrepreneurial vision that had been developing throughout my capability-building years. Conservative estimates suggested that successful platform development could generate annual recurring revenue exceeding $50 million within 5 years of market launch, while optimistic scenarios indicated potential for revenue growth that could reach hundreds of millions of dollars as platform adoption expanded across multiple industry sectors and international markets. More significantly, the recurring revenue characteristics of subscription-based platform services would create business valuation multiples that were substantially higher than traditional consulting or project-based service companies, potentially enabling exit strategies through acquisition or public offering that could generate personal wealth exceeding $100 million for successful platform developers. These financial possibilities represented the level of success that would provide complete independence from family influence and create opportunities for impact that extended far beyond personal achievement into industry transformation and economic value creation. The recognition that such extraordinary opportunities existed required fundamental reconsideration of career trajectory and risk tolerance that challenged every assumption about appropriate goals and reasonable expectations that had influenced my thinking throughout my educational and early professional years. The platform development path represented unprecedented potential for achievement that could dwarf conventional corporate success, but it also required accepting entrepreneurial risks and uncertainty that exceeded the boundaries of traditional career planning and family-supported decision-making. The strategic planning process that followed this recognition revealed the complexity of requirements for successful platform development and market penetration that would demand capabilities spanning technology development, business strategy, marketing execution, financial management, and organizational leadership. No single individual could master all required competencies, suggesting that successful platform creation would require building strategic partnerships and advisory relationships with experts in complementary areas while maintaining personal focus on core analytical and technical capabilities. The partnership requirements analysis identified several categories of strategic relationships that would prove essential for platform development success. Technology development partnerships would provide access to specialized engineering capabilities in areas like user interface design, mobile application development, and cloud infrastructure management that exceeded my current technical expertise. Business development partnerships would enable market penetration strategies and customer acquisition approaches that leveraged established industry relationships and sales channel access that would accelerate platform adoption rates. Financial partnerships would provide access to investment capital and strategic advisory services that could support rapid platform development and market expansion while enabling recruitment of senior executive talent and advisory board members who possessed experience in building technology companies and managing high-growth business operations. Legal and regulatory partnerships would ensure platform compliance with industry-specific requirements and data protection regulations that were becoming increasingly complex and essential for business customer acceptance. The systematic approach to partnership identification and relationship development that emerged from strategic planning reflected the analytical methodology that had distinguished my consulting work and academic performance. Rather than pursuing partnerships opportunistically or through social networking approaches, I developed detailed criteria for evaluating potential partners and systematic processes for relationship building that maximize the probability of successful collaboration while minimizing risks associated with inappropriate partner selection. The criteria for technology development partnerships emphasized complementary expertise, demonstrated execution capability, cultural alignment with analytical rigor and quality standards, and strategic vision that extended beyond immediate project requirements into long-term platform evolution and market expansion possibilities. The evaluation process included comprehensive reference checking with previous collaboration partners, detailed technical capability assessment through project-based evaluation, and cultural compatibility testing through extended interaction, periods that revealed decision-making approaches and problem-solving methodologies. Business development partnership criteria focused on industry knowledge depth, established customer relationships, sales execution track record, and strategic thinking capability that could contribute to platform positioning and market penetration strategy development. The evaluation process required detailed analysis of previous business development success, customer relationship quality assessment, and strategic planning capability evaluation that would ensure partnership value extended beyond short-term. Sales support into long-term competitive advantage creation. Financial partnership evaluation emphasized investment philosophy alignment, portfolio company support capability, industry expertise relevance, and network access that could accelerate business development and talent recruitment processes. The criteria required comprehensive due diligence on investment track record, portfolio company references, value-added service capability, and strategic advisory experience that would maximize partnership value while ensuring decision-making, compatibility, and shared vision for platform development and market expansion. The partnership development process that emerged from this systematic analysis represented a fundamental departure from traditional networking and relationship-building approaches that emphasized social compatibility and casual interaction over strategic value creation and objective capability assessment. The methodology reflected comprehensive business thinking and strategic planning that would prove essential for building the organizational foundation necessary to execute platform development and achieve market penetration objectives that exceeded conventional small business expectations. The vision that had emerged from systematic client analysis and market opportunity evaluation represented possibilities for achievement that transcended personal career advancement to encompass industry transformation and significant economic value creation that could benefit thousands of businesses and millions of end users who would experience improved operational efficiency and competitive capability through platform adoption. The scope of potential impact provided motivation and strategic focus that extended beyond personal financial objectives into broader purpose and legacy considerations. The comprehensive platform vision established the foundation for entrepreneurial action that would transform analytical capabilities and business expertise into market opportunity execution that could generate extraordinary results while creating sustainable competitive advantages through technological innovation and strategic market positioning. The systematic preparation that had occupied my early career years was building toward opportunities that would validate every assumption my mentors had made about transformational potential, while demonstrating that comprehensive preparation, combined with strategic execution, could enable achievements that exceeded the boundaries of conventional expectation and traditional limitation. The culmination of systematic preparation and comprehensive market analysis arrived through an unexpected convergence of circumstances that would force an immediate decision about the trajectory of my professional future and personal development. The moment of choice emerged during a particularly challenging period at the consulting firm, when organizational constraints and hierarchical limitations had reached levels that were actively preventing the implementation of innovative solutions and constraining the development of strategic capabilities that sophisticated clients were increasingly demanding from their technology partners. The catalyst for this decisive moment was a comprehensive request for proposal from Apex Manufacturing Corporation, a Fortune 500 industrial company with operations across 12 states and annual revenue exceeding $2 billion. Apex was seeking a complete transformation of their operational technology infrastructure, including enterprise resource planning system replacement, supply chain optimization platform implementation, and advanced analytics capabilities that would enable predictive maintenance, and automated quality control across their entire manufacturing network. The scope of the Apex engagement represented exactly the kind of comprehensive platform development opportunity that my market analysis had identified as the foundation for industry transformation and extraordinary financial returns. Rather than addressing individual operational challenges through separate consulting projects, Apex was seeking integrated solutions that could optimize their entire business operation while providing scalability for future expansion and competitive differentiation that would support aggressive growth objectives in highly competitive industrial markets. The financial implications of the Apex engagement were substantial even by the standards of large consulting projects. With an initial implementation budget exceeding $15 million and ongoing maintenance and development contracts that could generate recurring revenue streams exceeding $5 million annually for multiple years. Successful completion of the Apex project would establish credibility and reference value that could accelerate market penetration across other Fortune 500 industrial companies, creating opportunities for platform scaling that aligned perfectly with the entrepreneurial vision that had been developing throughout my capability-building years. However, the consulting firm's approach to the Apex opportunity revealed fundamental limitations that made successful project execution impossible within existing organizational structures and decision-making frameworks. Senior partners viewed the comprehensive scope as requiring collaboration with multiple specialized vendors and subcontractors, creating project management complexity that would necessitate conservative implementation timelines and risk management approaches that prioritized vendor coordination over innovative solution development. The traditional consulting methodology that Morrison and other senior partners preferred would essentially transform our firm into a project management coordinator rather than a strategic technology partner, limiting our contribution to vendor selection and implementation oversight while preventing the development of proprietary solutions and competitive advantages that could differentiate our services from established systems, integration companies that possessed superior vendor relationships, and project management capabilities. More significantly, the revenue-sharing arrangements that large-scale vendor partnerships would require would reduce our firm's financial returns to levels that were comparable to conventional consulting engagements, despite the substantially greater complexity and resource requirements that comprehensive platform development would demand. The conservative approach would generate predictable but limited financial returns while preventing the development of intellectual property and competitive capabilities that could support the kind of extraordinary business growth that platform development opportunities enabled. The strategic limitations of traditional consulting approaches became apparent during preliminary discussions with Apex executives, when their technical requirements and performance expectations clearly exceeded the capabilities that vendor coordination and conventional project management could provide. Apex was seeking innovative solutions that could deliver competitive advantages rather than standard implementations of existing technologies, and their evaluation criteria emphasized solution uniqueness and performance optimization over vendor reputation and implementation risk minimization. Dr. Michael Harrison, Apex Manufacturing's Chief Technology Officer, articulated the company's strategic requirements during an initial consultation meeting that revealed both the opportunity and the challenge that the engagement represented for our consulting firm. Dr. Harrison had been tasked by Apex's board of directors with identifying technology partners who could deliver transformational capabilities rather than incremental improvements, and his evaluation process focused on innovation potential and competitive differentiation rather than traditional consulting credentials and project management experience. We have evaluated proposals from several major systems integration firms, and their approaches are fundamentally similar in terms of vendor selection and implementation methodology, Dr. Harrison explained during the consultation meeting, which included Morrison and two other senior partners along with myself as the designated technical lead for the proposal development process. However, these conventional approaches would essentially replicate technology implementations that our competitors are already utilizing, which would provide operational efficiency improvements without delivering the competitive advantages that Our board is seeking. Dr. Harrison continued his explanation with specific requirements that clearly exceeded conventional consulting capabilities and demanded exactly the kind of innovative platform development that my market analysis had identified as the foundation for industry transformation. We need partners who can develop proprietary solutions that address our unique operational challenges while providing capabilities that are not available through standard vendor offerings. The successful consulting firm will essentially become our strategic technology partner for developing competitive advantages that cannot be replicated by competitors who are pursuing conventional implementation approaches. The requirements that Dr. Harrison described represented precisely the kind of comprehensive platform development opportunity that could validate the entrepreneurial vision that had been building throughout my systematic preparation period. However, successful execution would require capabilities and resources that exceeded the boundaries of traditional consulting firm operations and demanded the kind of innovative development and strategic partnership approaches that Morrison and other senior partners had consistently resisted implementing. The internal discussions that followed the Apex consultation meeting revealed the fundamental incompatibility between the opportunity that Dr. Harrison had presented and the organizational capabilities and risk tolerance that characterized our consulting firm's established operations. Morrison's initial response focused on identifying established vendors who could provide components of the required functionality, while minimizing proprietary development requirements that could create implementation risks and extend project timelines beyond conventional consulting engagement parameters. This is exactly the kind of project that requires careful vendor partnership development and systematic risk management, Morrison explained during the proposal planning session that occurred immediately after the client consultation. Apex is seeking capabilities that exceed any single vendor's offerings, which means we need to develop a comprehensive integration strategy that combines best-of-breed solutions from multiple technology providers while ensuring seamless operation and unified user experience. Morrison's approach reflected traditional consulting methodology that had proven successful for conventional projects, but it fundamentally misunderstood the strategic requirements that Dr. Harrison had articulated and the competitive differentiation that Apex was seeking through their technology transformation initiative. The vendor integration approach would produce implementation results that were sophisticated but not unique, providing operational improvements without delivering the proprietary competitive advantages that justified Apex's substantial investment budget and board-level strategic priority. The recognition that conventional consulting approaches would fail to satisfy Apex's requirements created an opportunity for demonstrating the innovative platform development capabilities that my systematic preparation had been designed to enable. However, pursuing this opportunity would require challenging Morrison's authority and proposing alternative approaches that departed fundamentally from established firm methodology and risk management frameworks. The decision to propose an innovative development approach represented a career-defining moment that would determine whether my capabilities would continue to be constrained by organizational limitations or whether they could be applied to opportunities that matched their strategic potential and market impact possibilities. The choice was not simply about individual career advancement, but about whether transformational business solutions could be developed and implemented, or whether conventional limitations would continue to prevent innovative approaches from reaching market application. I requested a private meeting with Morrison to present an alternative proposal strategy that would position our firm as a strategic development partner rather than a systems integration coordinator, emphasizing proprietary solution development and competitive advantage creation that would satisfy Apex's stated requirements while generating substantially greater financial returns and strategic value for our consulting organization. Morrison, I believe we have an opportunity to approach the Apex engagement differently in ways that would deliver superior results for the client while creating significant competitive advantages for our firm. I began the conversation with confidence that reflected months of strategic planning and market analysis that had prepared me for exactly this type of opportunity. Rather than pursuing vendor coordination approaches, we could develop proprietary platform solutions that address Apex's unique requirements while creating intellectual property that could be adapted for other manufacturing clients. The proposal that I presented during the meeting outlined comprehensive platform development that would integrate advanced analytics, automated optimization, and predictive capabilities into unified solutions that could be customized for Apex's specific operational requirements while maintaining scalability for future expansion and adaptation. The approach would require substantial upfront development investment and extended implementation timelines, but would generate recurring revenue, opportunities, and competitive differentiation that conventional vendor coordination could never provide. The financial projections that supported my alternative proposal indicated potential returns that exceeded conventional consulting engagements by factors of 3 to 5, while creating intellectual property and market positioning that could support aggressive business growth and competitive advantage development across multiple client engagements. The strategic implications extended beyond individual project success into comprehensive business transformation that could establish our firm as a leading platform development organization within the manufacturing technology sector. Morrison's response to my alternative proposal revealed the fundamental risk aversion and conservative thinking that had been constraining our firm's growth potential and preventing innovation development that could differentiate our services from established competitors. His concerns focused primarily on implementation risks and timeline uncertainty, rather than strategic value creation and competitive advantage development that successful platform development could provide. Elena, your proposal represents interesting possibilities, but the implementation risks and resource requirements exceed what our firm can reasonably manage within our current organizational structure, Morrison explained with the cautious tone that had characterized his response to previous innovative proposals. Proprietary development creates significant technical risks and requires capabilities that we have not previously demonstrated, while vendor coordination approaches provide predictable implementation processes and establish support structures that minimize project risks. The response demonstrated Morrison's inability to recognize the strategic value of platform development opportunities and his preference for conventional approaches that provided predictable but limited returns rather than transformational results that could position our firm for extraordinary growth and competitive differentiation. The conservative mindset that had previously constrained individual client engagements was now preventing our firm from pursuing the kind of strategic opportunities that could transform our entire business model and market positioning. The realization that organizational limitations would prevent execution of transformational opportunities created clarity about the necessity of independent action and entrepreneurial development that could fully utilize the capabilities that systematic preparation had produced. The consulting firm environment had provided valuable learning experiences and client relationship development, but continued employment within organizational structures that prioritized risk avoidance over innovation development would never enable the kind of achievement that comprehensive platform development could provide. The decision to pursue independent platform development represented acceptance of entrepreneurial risks and uncertainty that exceeded conventional career planning parameters. But it also represented the only path toward fully utilizing analytical capabilities and strategic vision that had been systematically developed throughout my early career years. The choice was between continued constraint within organizational limitations or embracing the uncertainty and potential that independent business development offered. The conversation with Morrison concluded with my recognition that successful execution of the Apex opportunity would require capabilities and strategic approaches that could only be implemented through independent business development rather than within existing consulting firm structures. The moment of truth had arrived, requiring immediate decision about whether to continue accepting organizational constraints or to pursue the entrepreneurial path that could transform platform development vision into market reality and extraordinary achievement. The crossroads represented more than career transition. It represented the culmination of systematic preparation and the beginning of independent action that would determine whether analytical capabilities and strategic vision could generate the kind of transformational success that would validate every assumption about potential while creating financial independence and industry impact that exceeded conventional limitations and traditional expectations. The transition from employee to entrepreneur required systematic preparation that extended far beyond technical capability development into comprehensive business foundation establishment, legal structure creation, and strategic positioning that would enable successful competition against established consulting firms while delivering innovative solutions that exceeded conventional market offerings. The decision to pursue independent business development necessitated meticulous planning that addressed every aspect of business operations, from initial client acquisition and project execution to long-term growth strategy and competitive differentiation that could sustain market leadership in rapidly evolving technology sectors. The first component of entrepreneurial preparation involved comprehensive legal and financial structure establishment that would provide appropriate protection for intellectual property development while enabling flexible business operations, and strategic partnership formation that could accelerate market penetration and competitive advantage creation. The legal requirements for technology consulting and software development businesses included professional liability insurance, intellectual property protection frameworks, employment law compliance structures, and contract negotiation capabilities that exceeded the complexity of conventional service business establishment. I engaged Patricia Walsh, a prominent business attorney specializing in technology company formation and intellectual property protection, to develop comprehensive legal structures that would support both immediate consulting operations and future platform development activities that could generate substantial intellectual property value requiring sophisticated protection strategies. Patricia had extensive experience with successful technology company launches and understood the specific legal requirements that would enable rapid business scaling while maintaining appropriate risk management and regulatory compliance. The legal structure that Patricia recommended included limited liability company formation, with provisions for future equity investment and partnership development, comprehensive intellectual property assignment agreements that would protect proprietary technology development, and standardized client contract templates that would ensure appropriate risk allocation while enabling flexible project scope and payment term negotiation that could accommodate diverse client requirements and project complexity levels. The intellectual property protection strategy was particularly important because the platform development approach that I had envisioned would create substantial proprietary technology value that could be licensed across multiple client implementations, generating recurring revenue streams that exceeded conventional consulting engagement profitability, while providing competitive advantages that would be difficult for established firms to replicate. Patricia's expertise in technology patent applications and trade secret protection would prove essential for maximizing the commercial value of innovative solutions while preventing competitive replication that could undermine market positioning. The financial structure establishment required comprehensive accounting system implementation, business banking relationship development, and cash flow management protocols that would support irregular consulting revenue patterns while enabling investment in platform development activities that would require substantial upfront expenditure before generating corresponding revenue returns. The financial planning complexity exceeded conventional small business requirements because platform development demanded significant initial investment in technology infrastructure and personnel capabilities that would generate returns over extended timeframes rather than immediate project completion. I retained Marcus Thompson, a certified public accountant with extensive technology startup experience, to develop comprehensive financial management systems that would provide accurate project profitability analysis, cash flow forecasting, and investor reporting capabilities that would support both operational management and future investment capital acquisition that could accelerate business growth and market expansion activities. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.